Hi, Jane Schnupp here. Welcome to another of the new Savvy Sightseer video vacation series. Today we are taking off for the south of France and the territory known as Provence. There's something alluring about the region. Just saying the south of France conjures up images of glitz and glamour, the rich and famous, the beautiful people. It is a mecca for artists, Hollywood stars, and the uber wealthy. Provence is the part of France that extends from the lower Rhone on the west, Italy on the east, and the Mediterranean Sea at the south. It is a truly wonderful place, one of contrasts. Waves of lush blue-purple lavender vie with bright yellow and brown sunflowers. Towns and hills are awash in ruddy ochre or sun-bleached limestone. Here, technological feats, from dazzling sight and sound shows to 2,000-year-old architectural wonders, command equal attention. No wonder artists like Van Gogh and Cézanne found their muses in Provence, and why it was the first foreign conquest by Romans as they started to expand beyond Rome to build the vast Roman Empire. Provence is a shortened version of its original name, Provincia Romana. We'll start in the heart of the Provence region with Avignon, which replaced Vatican City as the home of the popes for nearly a century, and which is the subject of a popular children's tune. What comes to mind to most people when Avignon is mentioned is a song many learned in grade school, Sur le Pont d'Avignon, with lyrics about singing and dancing on the Bridge of Avignon. Work began on the famed crossing in 1177 when a young shepherd, Benezet, had a vision that Christ told him to do it. Proving divine intervention, the 12-year-old single-handedly hoisted a massive rock into the river as a foundation. He worked tirelessly to get it done, but didn't live to see it completed in 1185. Several miracles, such as healing the deaf, are associated with the bridge's construction, and that's what led to his sainthood. This is an artist's rendition of what the bridge looked like when it was complete. With 22 arches and at a little over a half a mile long, the bridge connected independent Avignon to France. It was the only stone bridge over the Rhone between Lyon and the Mediterranean Sea, and so it was key to moving pilgrims, merchants, and armies into and out of the region. Taxes collected on the bridge fed Avignon's economy. In 1292, French King Philip the Fair built a tower to impose respect from the neighboring Avignon. Tides, sieges, and erosion led to the span's continual reconstruction, though, and eventually all parties gave up. Now only 4 arches remain. Despite the song's popularity, it's believed there was never any singing and dancing on the bridge, and the song's title originally was Sous, for under, because a whole lot of revelry was going on under the bridge, on an island that had quite a reputation for partying. A large gatehouse was erected in the 14th century so the bridge road could pass straight through the city wall and directly into the town. From its earliest days as a Roman outpost, Avignon had been a fortified town. In 1309, French Pope Clement V deemed Italy just too dangerous a place and moved the papal capital to the walled city of Avignon at the invitation of the French king of the time. During their stay, they built a more substantial barrier. Today, Avignon has the largest, most complete circuit of medieval walls in Europe. They run a little under 3 miles to enclose the 71-acre town and are 26 feet tall and 10 feet thick. And with 85 towers, it presented a daunting challenge to potential invaders. At one time, a 13-foot deep moat added even more protection, and 7 gates with spiked descending grills made it pretty much impenetrable. Even more important than being the most fortified palace of the time, it was designed to scream power. The Pope's palace is the biggest Gothic palace in all of Europe. It has 162,000 square feet of floor space, the equivalent of 4 Gothic cathedrals, and it covers nearly 3 acres. Besides the Pope, it was also built to accommodate about 500 people. Avignon served as the definitive center of Christianity for roughly 70 years, a reign that sparked a major controversy in 1378 when Italy demanded a return to Rome as the papal base, touching off what became known as the Great Schism and the era of dueling popes, one in Rome and one in Avignon. Early in the 15th century, the conflict was resolved, and Rome became recognized by all as the papal center. An overhead view of the complex shows a hodgepodge of additions made over time. Inside, there's a labyrinth of narrow corridors, vast halls, small chambers, and secret stairways. Secrecy and paranoia evidently abounded, as evidenced by the somewhat recent find in the 1980s of gold and coins found hidden under the granite slabs. Just as impressive as the palace structure itself is the massive restoration project bringing it to life in the 21st century. Here is the stag room that Pope Clement VI used as a study in 1343. Its huge wraparound mural of hunting and fishing scenes depicts pastimes of the aristocracy at the time. Some areas are being painstakingly reconstructed, but unfortunately, restoring is not possible in all rooms. During the French Revolution in 1791, the palace was seized by revolutionaries. At one point, it was converted into a military barracks and prison. By the time it was decided to open it to the public in the 1900s, none of the original furniture or artwork was left. But due to brilliant 21st century technology from a company called Histovery, who partnered with history experts, it can be seen as it was in its heyday. This is so cool. This is what you see when standing in the room. But when you hold up a tablet they call a histopad and move around the room, you get this 3D augmented reality experience. France has shared this breakthrough technology with us. Ohio's National Museum of the U.S. Air Force was the first in the U.S., in fact, the first museum outside of France, to integrate histopads into their experience. They debuted it in May 2019 for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. The histopad provides a paratrooper's eye view of the drop. Another innovative technological experience can be had outside in the palace's courtyard, which may be seeming kind of drab and colorless during the day, but at night it erupts into a 3D sight and sound extravaganza. A monumental 360-degree show surrounds you, simultaneously projecting on all four of the courtyard's walls. The technology was conceived by Spectaculaires, an apt name for this spectacle. The theme changes each year. In 2019, it was called Vibrations, with the goal, organizers said, of taking the viewer into a world of sensations and vibrations, fed by both image and sound, a whirlpool of sound and color which carries the viewer along a dreamlike, enchanting journey following a butterfly. Yeah, see a little bit of it for yourself. Butterfly led a story arc as 9 different chapters opened one after the other, telling the story of Provence and incorporating elements of water, hope, wine, art, and fire, a dramatic range of emotions and events. A lot is covered in the 30 to 40-minute program, from its Roman roots to modern times. There's even a tribute to a famed artist associated with the region, Vincent van Gogh. Avignon also has wall-sized stationary art. It's fun to turn a corner and come across one of the town's many trompe-l'oeil. These are frescoes creating optical illusions. They blend in so well they are essentially hidden in plain sight in over 70 locations throughout the city. These illusions, many of which appear to be windows giving a peek into the people and action within a room, have been painted on building walls. They pay homage to theater scenes from previous years of the Avignon Theater Festival. The 2 French artists who created them found ample canvases to use. In the 17th century, a window tax was levied based on the number of windows in a house. To thwart this tax, residents simply cemented up some windows, and these are now being used to showcase the special artwork. I had a great time on a sort of scavenger hunt to find them tucked away on side streets and in squares. They certainly reflect quite a mix of productions. Instead of the typical hanging bell in the town's clock tower, Avignon has one that's much more creative. There you will find an automatronic couple, the male, called a jacquemart, who strikes the hours on a bell with a hammer. He is a soldier wearing a helmet and a coat of mesh. His wife, Jacquot, dressed in a long yellow coat, reaches for him, a rose in hand which is never taken. Nearby, there's another creative feature of the small town, a living wall art at Les Halles, an indoor marketplace. It is covered on one side with a vertical garden. A popular meeting place in the city center for over a century, the covered market replaced an open-air one in 1970. The garden wall was added in 2005 and covers up what otherwise would be an extraordinary blot on the ambiance of medieval Avignon. A 5-story parking lot rises above the market. Inside, there's over 40 vendors who offer all sorts of specialties. I loved the spice aisle. The colors and smells were extraordinary. Besides the central market, in French towns, another fixture is the carousel. Remember back when these had a brass ring you could try to grasp? Thought that was all for fun, did you? Well, the whole notion of horses and their riders going around had little to do with fun at the inception of carousels in the 12th century, when Arabian and Turkish riders would gallop in circles on real horses and toss breakable balls of perfume to hone their skills and agility, preparing themselves for a real battle. The sport was dubbed Garacello, meaning little war, by Italian crusaders who brought the concept to Europe. Louis XIV turned it into a huge spectacle in 1662 when he installed Le Grand Carrousel in the square near the Louvre. Young French noblemen used it to train and attempted to lance rings while riding legless wooden horses attached to a rotating platform. This further evolved to a general public sport and a brass ring that people tried to snag for a prize at amusement parks, and hence the phrase going for the brass ring. Today it's a standard sight, fun for all ages. For quieter amusement, a relaxing walk through the garden of the Rock of the Domes, or the clergy, is a nice way to pass an afternoon. This 7-acre hillside garden is adjacent to the Pope's Palace and was the site of the earliest Roman settlement. Laying it out in 1830 was a colossal undertaking. It hides a reservoir that once supplied the city with water. But the view of the Rhone and Philip's 13th century intimidating tower from about 100 feet up makes the garden architect's efforts well worthwhile in my book. Avignon is largely a laid-back type of town. This is its main street, Rue de la République, lined with pastry and souvenir shops. It was designed in the mid-1800s to give direct access through the town from the new railway station. For a main street, it is a bit unusual in that it has 2 lanes, but they're both one-way only, away from the station towards the palace. These are my 2 favorite side streets. The one on the left, lined with sycamore or plane trees, gives wonderful shade. Originally, these were planted by Napoleon because their thick trunks with natural camouflage gave his soldiers hiding places, as well as provided sun relief for marching troops. Nature of a different kind hangs over the busy shopping street on the right of your screen. Sunflowers are an important crop in France, which is one of the EU's largest producers at 1.2 million tons a year. Development of the sunflower crop started in France at the end of the 1970s. Its cultivation was promoted in order to produce domestic and edible oil, which could be healthier when substituted for butter in cooking. Another favorite street of mine is one whose name translates to the Street of the Dyers, for the intense textile industry that flourished here between the 14th and 19th centuries. The street follows the narrow Sorgue River, fed by the waters from the Fontaine de Vaucluse. In the past, along the entire street, mills were installed in the houses opposite each wheel. There were 23 here in 1817. The river's source is just about 20 miles outside of Avignon. Derived from the Latin term for an enclosed valley, the Fontaine de Vaucluse is a lovely enclave nestled among nearly 800-foot tall mountains. It is the largest spring in France, the common output of an immense underground network of waters from rain and snowmelt deposited by the surrounding mountains. It produces 630 million cubic meters of water each year. The Sorgue and its tributaries powered nearly 70 watermills at the height of the industry in the 19th century. A remaining one closest to the source is now a museum, a 17th century paper mill. The town became the biggest paper-making site over several centuries, with up to 7 mills operating in just the one region. The 48-blade, 22-foot water wheel powered these mallets that pounded about 35 pounds of pulp rags over a 24 to 36-hour period into a paste that would then be processed into paper. Drive through the Luberon region in central Provence in the summer and you'll enjoy seas of stunning lavender fields, brightening up the countryside from mid-June to early August. Lavender is said to be the soul of Provence. It was first brought to the region by the Romans 2,000 years ago, where it turned out to be the perfect climate. Romans' enthusiastic bathers extracted the plant's essential oil and named the plant from the Latin lavare, to wash. But the plant is much more than an aromatic soap ingredient and is called blue provincial gold. In various forms, it heals insect bites or repels insects, soothes headaches, cures acne, and when put inside a sachet by your pillow, it helps you sleep. Lavender was used in hospitals in World War I as an antiseptic to disinfect wards. The herb is so important it warrants its own festival day, held annually on August 15 in the little village of Saul, surrounded by lavender fields. Another prominent feature of the Luberon Valley are hilltop villages with houses clustered tightly together, like in here, Gourd. It was devastated through a series of natural and man-made events, earthquakes and wars, but that didn't lead to the town's abandonment. Rather, its isolation, its ruins, a labyrinth of cobblestone streets, its light and its landscapes became a source of inspiration for artists such as Marc Chagall. It's a major draw for the extremely wealthy, too, and is considered the most expensive place to live in Provence. For those lucky enough to afford a home here, the panoramic views of the Coulon Valley and the Luberon Mountains are spectacular. Ridley Scott filmed The Good Year with Russell Crowe here, and celebrities have quietly taken up residence in the area. Besides the views, the town has something else going for the rich and famous: some of the strictest privacy laws in the world, whereby it's forbidden to take a photograph of someone in a private place without their consent. After admiring the knot of houses clinging to the hill, what you notice first about coming into the little village of Roussillon is the color of the buildings. Every one is a different shade of ochre, reflecting the various quarries in the area. The village grew up around a small castle built in 987 in the heart of one of the biggest ochre deposits in the world. The many different iron oxides in ochre sands combine in countless shades, ranging from yellow to violet. The Ochre Trail is a short and easy walk through a former ochre quarry and the surrounding woods. I was concentrating so much on staying on the wooden steps with no handrails that I stopped on a platform and wasn't prepared at all for what I saw when I looked up. It's sometimes referred to as the Giant's Causeway. There are 17 different shades of ochre, bleeding into each other as here. I thought there'd be distinctly separate colors areas, but that wasn't the case. Ochre was used for dyeing, painting, and pottery glaze, but demand dropped when synthetic dyes were developed. The colors and gentle swirls make this a very otherworldly environment. One perched village called Minerve became world famous thanks to writer Peter Mayle, who chronicled his first year there as a British expatriate in his book A Year in Provence. For wine lovers, Minerve has a special draw: a corkscrew museum. 1,000 different varieties from a private collection are on display at the museum, which sits amid a 100-acre winery. While the French are known for their wines, the corkscrew was believed to be invented by an Englishman, an offshoot of a similar device used to remove bullets that are stuck in rifles. The first known patent on the corkscrew dates back to 1795 by Reverend Samuel Henshaw of England. The earliest corkscrews were handcrafted by gold or blacksmiths who were master metalworkers, so these were unique, tailor-made pieces, usually personalized with initials or seals. Some at the museum display are decidedly inventive, and some are so risque I couldn't show them here. One of the most visited monuments in France is the Pont de Gare, the highest aqueduct built in the Roman Empire. It took just 5 years to build in the 1st century AD and is the only remaining example of a 3-story antique bridge still standing. In 1985, it was awarded the status of a World Heritage Site by UNESCO as a mark of a masterpiece of human creative genius, joining the ranks then of the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal. The quarter-mile-long bridge was part of a 31-mile waterway that brought essential fresh water from the town of Uzes to Nîmes, a vital Roman city on the route from Italy to Spain. and the town we can thank for developing one of our essential garments, denim, that is, de Nîmes, a textile of Nîmes. 3 rows of arcades, one on top of the other, create an awesome structure. There are 6 arches at the bottom, with this walkway above and 11 more arches, and then 35 arches on the top level, where the channel filled with nearly 8 million gallons of water daily in its heyday. Over 55,000 tons of limestone rock, quarried about a half-mile away, was then floated down the river Gardon and were used to build the massive structure. The entire bridge was developed off-site at the quarry. Archaeologists have found evidence of how well organized the project was, with numbering on the stones, points of support for scaffolding, and evidence of the use of hoists. Numbers and letters show where each piece would be fitted together at the bridge site, sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. Craftsmen who worked on the bridge over various centuries left their marks. More than 320 initials have been counted, dating from 1611 to 1989. An elaborate museum details how important clean water is to a civilization. Romans considered it vital in order for a city to be able to develop and prosper. Water from the network fed public fountains like this one, which not only provided water, but also a center of socialization where local women met, sort of like around the water cooler at work. Models, virtual reconstructions, and multimedia screens detail the aqueduct's construction and historical significance. But while the bridge was certainly an architectural masterpiece, it was something of a failure as an aqueduct. By the 3rd century, the Romans had stopped regular maintenance of it. The level of water flow dropped considerably. Interest in using water primarily for human use shifted to agricultural, and the large public bathing houses were being abandoned as social norms changed. Gradually, the aqueduct became clogged with limescale and vegetation, and the water was polluted. It was abandoned altogether in the 6th century after the Romans left Provence. Water is also the focal point of Aix-en-Provence. The town name comes from it being the first province settled outside of Rome in 122 BC. Aix was for the Roman word for water and the natural spring under the town. In the 12th century, Aix became a famous cultural and academic center when some counts arrived and made it the capital of Provence. It continued to be a high society spot until the French Revolution. Aix flowered as a center of learning and the arts. This is the main street, Cours Mirabeau. The original road was revamped in 1649 into a stately quarter-mile showcase to impress travelers passing through between Avignon and Marseille. It was widened to 140 feet as a promenade for carriages, and all the buildings had to be the same height with wrought iron balconies. Nothing screams the town's wealth, prestige, and power more than uniformly elegant mansions. Further enhancing the look, elm trees were replaced with the plane or sycamore trees. A mandatory stop for tourists in Provence is a village market. Most take place once a week, but Aix has markets in different areas each day, except on Tuesdays, when it becomes a mega market town. Over 100 stalls fill its main squares, like this one at Richelieu Plaza. They offer everything from flowers, food and crafts, to clothes and knickknacks. It's hard to tell where one market ends and another starts, as they sprawl seemingly endlessly into surrounding lanes from one square to the next. Aix is also an agricultural center, especially noted for Provençal olives and almonds. Of course, local lavender comes in all forms: culinary sacks, sachets, soaps, and linens, and there's plenty of tributes to artists associated with the region. Aix is referred to as the City of 1,000 Fountains. While that's definitely an exaggeration, the town has no shortage of ornate waterworks, all very different. There's about 130 of them. Here are just a few. On the left of your screen is the Place of the Preachers, once a square where criminals were hung. An eagle on this fountain symbolizes reason and stared daggers at the doomed from high above an obelisk, combining the functionality then of a fountain with a strong message. In the center on the top is the King René fountain on Cours Mirabeau. It honors a beloved 15th century king who had made Aix his capital. René holds a scepter in his right hand and a muscat wreath in his left because he introduced the wine grapes to Provence. Below in the center is a gift from a rich merchant. who decided to honor the residents of his district with a prestigious fountain symbolizing the beauty and charm of Provence. He commissioned this addition to an ancient fountain in 1922. On an urn at the top of the Pascal fountain, now named for him, are four young women dancing the farandole, which is like a conga line. There's a tambourine drummer on the pedestal, and young Bacchus with pipes sends water into two huge shells. To the right of it is d'eau chaude, nicknamed Mossy. Its water source comes from the Bagnéres spring, which is a hot spring, so its water stays about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And in the upper right is the Four Dolphins. Erected in 1667, it was the first freestanding fountain in Aix. But the granddaddy of them all is the Rotund Fountain, the symbolic entrance to the town on Cours Mirabeau. Constructed in 1860, it is the city's most grandiose fountain. It is 39 feet tall with a 130-foot diameter. At the top are three figures representing law, agriculture, and fine arts. Around the base are children, dolphins, swans, and groups of lions. Even private homes can have the most magnificent fountains, like this one in the garden of the Hôtel de Caumont, in the Mazarin quarter of southern part of Aix. It's a luxury district that was created in the 17th century just for the well-to-do. The aristocratic sector is characterized by some magnificent architecture. Begun in 1715, this mansion took 30 years to finish. In the garden is the Fountain of the Three Tritons. Tritons are mythical, fish-tailed creatures who are the allies of the gods, particularly Poseidon, the god of the sea. The fountain is a key feature of this mansion's garden, which was planned in the classic style of the period, the so-called French gardens, the hallmarks of which are immaculate geometric lines, perfect symmetry, and an open perspective with water features. Demonstrating Parisian influences, the Hôtel de Caumont is a mansion built in the so-called between courtyard and garden fashion. That's an architectural design that started in Paris in the 16th century. Four elements characterize this kind of layout for a chateau and its park. A grand gate, in front of which I was standing to take this picture, the courtyard you see, then the main building and the garden, moving hierarchically from a public to a private space. As the first room, the entrance hall must impress upon guests the splendor of the property. And they certainly get a wow factor with this glamorous staircase as you step in. 3 flights of stairs with wrought iron banisters spiral upward. Even at the time it was built, this was considered an outstanding decorative feature that could be seen from the outside of the building through elongated windows. The staircase's elegant ironwork with scroll motifs was crafted by a locksmith. For financial reasons, the original owners were forced to sell it in 1758 to a rich ship owner, merchant, and banker of Marseille. The residence was well known in the area and the setting for countless parties attended by the elite and the city's wealthiest residents right up until the French Revolution. I guess they didn't think that staircase was elegant enough because the new owners added 2 imposing braced busts of Atlas, seeming to hold up the mansion. During the 18th century, intimate boudoirs were all the rage. Interiors became places where extravagance met comfortable living. The daughter of the house's bedroom was typical of the area, with tasteful, cozy alcoves and spaces. She had eventually inherited the house, and then it took on the name of her husband, the Marquis de Caumont. During World War II, many resistance fighters were sheltered at the mansion, which was eventually sold to the city in 1964. In 2010, a private organization called Culture Spaces became the new owner. They restored several rooms and then turned most of the building into an art gallery, which they opened to the public in 2015. I came across this unusual figure in the courtyard of Hotel Galifet, a cultural arts center housed in an 18th century private mansion. Called Swimming in Happiness, the Senegalese artist who created it says the sculpture is an invitation to travel, dream, and utopia. I like to end all of my programs with the words of Dr. Seuss. Sometimes you don't appreciate the moment until it becomes a memory. And I like to add to that to always remember to celebrate the moments and treasure the memories. If you have any questions about this program, Email me or use the contact page on my website. I also invite you, of course, to visit my website and see more of the region we visited today or any of my European destinations. When libraries are again offering in-person presentations, you can check my programs tab to see where I'll be. Until then, visit the library site for more video vacations by Savvy Sightseer. Here's hoping we will soon all be able to take up that Senegalese artist's invitation to travel. Bon voyage!